Have you noticed it? How you're sinking quietly into a sea of distractions, notifications, voices, screens, opinions. And in the middle of all that, there's you. Breathing faster, thinking louder, reacting quicker than your own awareness can keep up. It's not noise outside, it's noise inside, and you keep feeding it. Every scroll, every reply, every time you speak just to avoid hearing yourself. You're not tired because you do too much. You're tired because you haven't stopped in days. Not truly, not deeply. But what if you did? What if for one moment you stepped back, closed your mouth, and let the silence show you what's still alive in you? What happens when the world goes quiet and you finally listen? Silence isn't absence, it's access to things you've buried, to truths you've ignored, to power you've forgotten how to hold. You weren't meant to fill every space or answer every word or speak just to feel present. Some presence doesn't need sound, it just needs stillness, but most never reach it because they can't stop long enough to see what's underneath. The Stoics knew this, that silence isn't a void, it's a mirror. And what it shows you first might not be pretty. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you listen long enough, you'll remember what it means to return to yourself. And it begins not with doing, but with one simple, brutal act, stopping. It doesn't start with silence, it starts with stopping the scroll. The noise, the urge to fill space just to feel alive. You think you're in control, but really, you're just in motion. Spinning, reacting, repeating. The Stoics didn't wait for life to slow down. They slowed themselves down. Because nothing true begins in the middle of chaos. And stopping is an act of war against the world's addiction to speed. It's not passive, it's precise. It's a choice to pause when everything tells you to push, to sit. When your mind screams to move, to breathe. When your chest tightens with noise. Most people are afraid to stop because they don't know what they'll hear, or feel, or remember. But without the pause, you never get to the power. So stop, not because you're tired, but because you're finally ready to see, to feel, to hear what's real. Anyone can speak, very few can hold their tongue, not because they're weak, but because they're in control. The world confuses silence with surrender. But the Stoics knew it's the opposite. Silence is discipline. It's restraint. It's knowing you could respond, but you don't need to. Because you're not here to win arguments. You're here to win yourself. Every word you release is a part of your energy, your clarity, your presence. And once it's out, you don't get it back. Marcus Aurelius said, "Let your speech be brief, simple, and restrained. Not quiet out of fear, quiet out of focus." So next time your ego begs to be heard, don't. Let the noise pass. Let the storm collapse on itself, because the one who speaks last speaks lightest and lands heaviest. Silence isn't hiding, it's mastering. And the one who holds his words holds his power. When you stop speaking, you start seeing. Words distract, they decorate, they protect you from facing what's right in front of you. But silence strips the scene clean, and suddenly you notice the shift in their tone, the truth in their eyes, the part they didn't say but couldn't hide. The Stoics didn't rush to speak, they watched, they held. They let the moment unfold without forcing it to fit a script. Because when you're silent, you create space. And space shows reality. It slows time, it sharpens perception. It reveals what noise usually buries. You don't miss what's being said, you catch what's being avoided. So don't speak to feel safe. Don't answer just to fill air. Wait, look, see. Because the one who sees best isn't the one who knows more. It's the one who stopped talking first. Not reacting doesn't mean you didn't notice. It means you're in control. And that control makes people uncomfortable. Because silence in the face of noise feels like a mirror. And most can't bear to see their reflection. The Stoics didn't match energy. They held energy. They let others spin while they stood. Because the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who doesn't flinch. You want to be that person? Then don't answer every jab. Don't defend every word. Don't chase every misunderstanding. Just stay, unbothered, still, present. Let them project, let them assume, let them collapse under the weight of your unmoving frame. The less you react, the more they reveal. Because silence forces truth to the surface. And a man who doesn't rise to bait doesn't just win the moment, he owns the space. The quieter the world gets, the louder you become, on the inside. Because beneath all the reactions, the distractions, the proving, there's a voice you haven't heard in a while. Not the voice of fear or doubt or noise borrowed from the world, but the voice that remembers who you are, what matters, where the line is drawn. The Stoics trained in that silence, not to escape, but to return. Because when the world gets loud, you forget, you blend, you break your own code just to be part of someone else's. But silence calls you back, to your standard, to your center, to the compass that doesn't shake when the noise does. And you don't need answers, you need to hear again. Not what they say, but what you know. So sit still, long enough for the surface to settle. And when it does, that voice you buried will rise, and it won't need to shout, because truth doesn't need volume, only space. Most people don't talk to connect, they talk to escape, to avoid the silence, to avoid the stillness, to avoid the voice that shows up when everything else stops. They speak out of fear, not wisdom, out of habit, not clarity. Because silence is dangerous to someone who's not at peace with themselves. It shows too much, feels too raw, and so they fill it with anything. Jokes, updates, endless commentary on things they don't even care about. But the Stoics didn't fear silence. They used it, they lived in it, because they knew, if you can't sit with yourself, you'll never stand with power. So when everyone talks, just to fill the air, don't join. Let them speak, let them spiral, let them run. You remain still, because the ones who talk least are often the ones who face themselves the most. And that kind of presence can't be faked. It comes from silence you didn't run from. When the words stop, the truth shows up. Not the curated version, not the story you tell others, the raw one, the one beneath the surface, the one you've been talking over for years. Because most of what we say is armor, a cover, a distraction from the things we're not ready to face. But silence removes the shield, and what's left is you. The doubts, the anger, the ache you never named, it all comes up when the mouth goes quiet. And it's uncomfortable. That's why most people fill the space, because silence doesn't hide anything, it reveals it. The Stoics knew you can't master what you refuse to see, so when the silence stings, don't flinch, let it burn, let it break through the noise you built around your own reflection. Because only when you stop talking do you finally start listening. Not to them, to you, to the version that's been waiting beneath all the layers to be seen, to be heard, to be honest. And from there you rebuild. Don't mistake silence for emptiness. Sometimes silence is rage, under restraint. It's power without panic, fire without flames. The Stoics felt everything, but they didn't show it to prove it. They held it, breathed through it, chosen when to move. Because true strength isn't loud, it's selective. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to react just to show you're not weak. That need to prove yourself, that's the weakness. Anyone can explode, anyone can break, but to hold the line, to let the anger burn clean without burning through you, that's rare. Silence isn't passive, it's precision. It says I feel it, but I don't follow it. And in that pause, you keep your ground. You hold your fire. You become the one everyone else can't predict. Because stillness doesn't mean calm. It means control. And nothing's more dangerous than a storm that knows when to wait. The less you say, the more it lands. In a world addicted to volume, silence is weight. Most speak to be seen, but the Stoics, they spoke to deliver. Every word was measured, every pause intentional, every silence full of meaning. Because when you say less, people listen more. They lean in, they feel the gaps. They start to wonder what you're holding back. And that curiosity, it's power. You don't need to dominate the room. You just need to stand still long enough for the noise to crash on its own. Then they'll hear you. Not because you were loud, but because you were the only one who didn't need to be. That's gravity. That's command. That's what silence does. It doesn't chase attention, it demands it. Without asking. You don't go silent to disappear. You go silent to return. To the part of you that doesn't perform, doesn't prove, doesn't panic when the world moves faster than your breath. The Stoics didn't withdraw out of weakness. They stepped back to reclaim their center. Because when you've been too far out there, in noise, in roles, in reflex, silence becomes a home, not to hide, but to strip away everything that isn't you. And when the noise finally dies, you realize you never needed to say more. You needed to listen deeper. To what still stands when everything else is turned off. So go quiet, not to vanish, but to re-enter, stronger, sharper still. Let the silence rebuild you. And when you return, you won't come back louder, just more complete. Silence didn't fix you. It revealed you. It didn't make life quieter. It made you stronger. Because the true force of silence isn't in the absence of sound. It's in the presence of something deeper. A mind that no longer reacts. A spirit doesn't beg to be seen. A being that no longer moves unless it means something. This is not the silence of retreat. This is the silence of return. Still, clear, unbothered. And when you walk back into the world, they'll notice. Not because you're louder, but because your presence now speaks in a frequency they forgot how to hear. And some will fear it. Some will misunderstand it. But the ones who feel it won't forget it. Because silence, when earned, leaves an echo that lasts longer than any sound.